Thank you for this great session. Now we'll move forward to our next speaker, Olga Megorskaya. She's the CEO of Toloka AI. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all. So my name is Olga, and today I would like to talk a little bit about another topic that is rarely covered when we talk about AI, is actually the questions of human insights and human-powered ground truth that is used to train AI models. I'd like to start our talk with a brief quiz to you all. Try to guess whose personality is that. That is a very famous person who recently passed the popular test on 16personalities.com. And we see that person as the explorer, the constant seeking for the constant improvement, the thinker, yet sometimes subject to the risk of avoiding the social rules, searching for the joy. Who do you think that can be? The very Elon Musk, probably that's a good try, but I bet there is another even more popular person right now in AI. I bet you've heard about this person on every single talk today. Yeah, you got it right, of course, it's ChatGPT. And actually it's quite fun, on the one hand, that we are talking about the personality of an AI model in a serious NLP track of a serious AI conference. But on the other hand, if we think further, we understand that soon it will affect significantly our lives in different aspects. We may expect that those ChatGPT-like models would be acting as our personal assistants, writing emails instead of us, writing college essays instead of our children, and etc., etc. So actually the question of their personality turns from just the question of fun into a very practical one. And technically, if we, of course, simplify to a great extent what ChatGPT is a combination of several models. On the fundamental level, there is the large language model, which effectively is a model just returning the probability of the next character in the line, like no personality detected there. But then this large language model is fine-tuned and up-trained to act more as a human, to talk in the form of the conversation, in the form of a dialogue, and actually to summarize the answers. Unlike the basic search, which returns you as the answer to your query, just set of links, the ChatGPT knows how to summarize the content of the links and provide you the summarized answer. And on top of that, this model has been fine-polished to avoid the inappropriate or controversial answers to behave properly. And as we can see, and that's actually the great irony of the whole industry that is called artificial intelligence, is that on every layer of this solution, there is actually the human insight that plays the great role in its output. And we may expect that depending on the language and depending on the domain, the ChatGPT and similar models that will come following it would behave differently and would perform differently. For example, we have talked to ChatGPT on different languages, and we already see the difference. It works really, really well on English language. It returns much simpler answers in French. It provides some random stopping and breaks in sentences in Russian, and unfortunately performs even worse in Hebrew, sometimes losing the semantic meaning of the sentences. And that's why I think it's important for all of us, for all the industry, to understand that such technologies based on large language models actually contain inherently some biases, starting from the lowest level, which depends on the availability of the text corpuses to train the large language model on, Then on the level of domain expertise, when there are certain people who train the model to detect what is correct and what is incorrect in certain professional domain, and up to the cultural specifics and people who actually train this model, what is appropriate and what is inappropriate. And we in Toloka believe that these are the questions that are really important, and we're entering the very interesting era when the whole AI community should keep that in mind. And we see our mission in giving the AI community the access to the really global and diverse source of human insight in order to develop the models in accordance to representative human insight. A couple of words about what Toloka is. Actually, Toloka started several years ago as an open crowdsourcing platform designed for the machine learning engineers to collect large-scale data sets. It operates in the form of the open platform where on the one hand anyone can register as a performer. We call the performer Tolokers. On the other hand, any data scientist, any engineer or any AI team, any company can register as a requester. Requesters post the tasks that they need to collect for the data sets. Tolokers choose the tasks that they like and perform them, and in between Toloka provides actually all the set of quality control techniques that allow to solve the problem of collecting large-scale data sets, not in a people management way, but in a technological way, building the pipelines out of minor efforts of independent performers that provide sustainable and repeatable high-quality result. By that time, we have grown to arguably the largest crowdsourcing platform in the world. We are now covering the majority of countries with more than 9 million people registered on the platform and more than 240,000 people earning money on the platform every month, and with hundreds of companies posting thousands of their tasks every month on the platform. And also product-wise, we have developed from being a pure data labeling solutions towards a full-stack machine learning platform, because we believe that this combination of, on the one hand, the access to the global crowd and the expertise how to manage it, and on the other hand, the expertise of building machine learning solutions and running them and monitoring them within their lifetime is the important value that we bring to the AI community. But coming back to our topic, these are the important steps at which, actually at every of these steps, we need to understand. I'd like to illustrate how we can affect the potential biases that we can meet on every of those levels. Let's start with the first layer, the corpus size. Also a question to the audience, how do you think which language is the most represented in the websites in the world? That was easy, it's English, thank you. How do you think what's number 2? Chinese, what's number 3? No? No? Yeah, actually, it's quite interesting. Chinese internet is kind of an universe of its own. Surprisingly, it is mostly represented in WeChat ecosystem and etc. That's why on classical websites it is much less represented. But here you can see that actually, however we measure, English is outperforming every other language more than 10 times in terms of being presented in the internet. And that leads to the organic bias whenever any large language model trains on all the available data sets, it will anyway be biased towards the English language, towards the structure of English language, and etc. To be honest, I don't know if this is the problem that is somehow solvable, because that represents the world we are living in. Even today we are speaking English, not any other language. But still, we do believe that it is important to increase the number of open data sets that represent other languages, especially different rare languages. That's why in Toloka we support the grants for the researchers who who are intent to create open data sets on other underrepresented languages to the community. The next layer, which to my mind is the most important, and probably that's the major challenge that the machine learning development would be facing in the nearest years, is the layer of domain expertise. And here we can talk both about like professional expertise, like the speaker previous to me mentioned about the medical domain, like medical engineering, etc., or the general human expertise, like the ability to talk on a certain language, to write text on this language, to summarize the text, etc. Because technically, that's the same challenge. Whenever you need to collect the real data set on which to train like the expertise level of the model, you need first to find a trustable expert and then to somehow scale his or her expertise to quite a large scale, because it is never enough to collect one answer or something. Any data set starts from, I don't know, thousands of data points to be really sufficient for the production solution. And I want to illustrate one of the use cases, how in Toloka we are collecting the data sets from the experts who know rare African languages. For several years already we cooperate with World Machine Translation Organization and company Meta and Microsoft, and for the latest conference on NLP in the end of 2022, we have collected the data sets for evaluating the quality of machine translation models on several dozens of rare African languages. The task for human looked like that. So there is a pair of, there is original text and different versions of its translation to one of the languages, and people needed to evaluate the quality of that translation. And in order to build such the pipeline which produces you with the needed number of labels that are later used to measure the quality of machine translation models, we have built on Toloka such a multi-step pipeline where out of our multi-million global crowd, we select people who are familiar with a pair of languages. First was English or French, and the other was one of those rare African languages. Then the people passed through several steps of qualification, verification, etc. Then we applied some tools of cross-validation, measuring the consistency of the answers, measuring the accuracy on some hidden, we call them honeypots, like tricky questions for which we know the correct answer, etc. And thus we actually managed to build the universal pipeline. The pipeline is similar for all the languages, and we managed to produce thousands of labels within several days, and it actually still works, and the solution will be repeated and reused for all the upcoming contests within the machine learning translation events. And the highest level on which we can deal with some biases and on which we actually deal with human insights is the cultural level and the cultural or social specifics. To be honest, myself, I for a long time believed that in machine learning there is no such challenge as cultural differences. I was a strong believer in more like the pipeline showed on the previous slide, when if you apply strong guidelines, if you invest into controlling the quality, if you formalize the process and you understand at every moment of time what is the particular accuracy of every judge, every person who is providing you with labels, well, there is no such a problem as cultural specifics. And surprisingly, It was one of the clients of Toloka, one of the giant Chinese marketplaces, who changed my mind because they approached us wanting to enter the market of one of European countries, saying, okay, we need the moderation of content. And I was quite surprised because, like, hey, you already are the biggest e-commerce player in China. Don't you have the moderation? And the answer was, yes, we do, but it is Chinese. And surprisingly, indeed, the moderation approaches that are fine for Chinese users appear to be inappropriate for the users in Europe. Like, for example, if they are advertising some medicine in China, it is very, like, okay for the users to see. They would rather show you how awful the disease is, so you want to cure it. While in Europe, you would rather want to see how shiny my skin became after I applied that cream, and etc. So there are many such use cases where actually the cultural differences make difference. Surprisingly, yeah, and so there was they have built a pipeline which targets their tasks on specific people from different regions, measure the consistency between them, and that's how obtain the signals of cultural specifics from different regions. Surprisingly, actually, it's not only the problem of machine learning. In social sciences, there is also now the challenge, and we are being approached by the professors in the social science domain. There is even an acronym, I learned them just from them, called the WEIRD countries, meaning West educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic. These are the countries on where the majority of social studies are applied on, and you can imagine that they are far from being really representative to all of the world. And now we have a specific program helping the social scientists and researchers to get the access to the populations like beyond this weird sample. And as a postscriptum, the last food for thought for you is actually when we talk about like ChatGPT, there is apart from it one more actor in this pair. It's actually the human who writes the queries, the requests, and asks the questions to the model. And now there is a new domain which is being developed, is actually the prompt engineering, because a lot depends on actually what you ask. And it is also subject to internal biases. So one of the approaches that we see that is being used is actually to use human feedback as a rewarding target to choose the best prompt. So for example, the model provides you some prompt words that are used to draw beautiful pictures. Then you ask human to vote which of the pictures are more beautiful for them and which are less. And thus you derive a model which generates the best, the sets of prompts which result in the most beautiful pictures. So just several of the use cases of the prompts of the actual images generated by prompts generated by the crowd. So kind of the full loop where the human is only used as a reward function. So to sum it up, well, as we all understand that generative AI is a super powerful technology, I think that we need to be mindful making sure that its quality highly depends on the quality of the ground truth input which you gain from the human insights. And we at Toloka are happy to give the community the access to the diverse and professional crowd representing different stratas of the population of the Earth. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, hey, thank you. We have time for one question. Do you have any question? Yes, I see one here, please. Over there. Yeah.
Okay. First of all, thank you. You talk about crowdsourcing, democratization. You also talk about cultural and social specifics. Those two are in tension. When you try to regulate, when you try to moderate, you actually, you're not really crowdsourcing, you're not really open source. That's what regulators will demand you in the future. How do you cope with this tension that the regulation presents to crowdsourcing?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very good question. Actually, that's a question of the appropriateness of the different use cases. Like in some use cases, like for example, the moderation of ChatGPT, it should be regulated. There are certain topics that such models should be avoiding, and that is not up to like the crowd to decide. The other use case, for example, like this moderation of advertisements in Chinese versus European marketplace, this is something not to be regulated. This is just a question of cultural specifics, which are more effective to be crowdsourced, more effective to listen to the people, rather to tell them what is appropriate and what is not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Olga.
Thank you.